Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the West Hartford Public Schools Board of Education regular meeting. Kemi, would you mind please calling the roll?
Mrs. Blanks,
Here.
Dr. Greenberg,
Here.
Mr. Levine,
Here.
Mr. Paul-Uke,
Here.
Ms. Poland,
Here.
Dr. Thomas Farquharson,
Here.
Mr. Zdanowitz,
Here.
Student Representative Gus Bacon,
Here.
and Megan Striffcave.
Here. Gus, I believe it's your turn to lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there's a bit of a revision to the agenda order, a few statements, and the first is mine. I know that you have all seen the Hartford Current article vilifying my role in the start times discussion. Let me begin by apologizing to anyone who was offended by what appeared there. Hurtful things were written about individuals, and I deeply regret that. I did reach out personally to apologize to the specific people affected, but I also want to say that publicly. Second, while I tried very hard to keep a bright line between my neutral role as chair and my private role as board member, I did not always succeed. Over the course of the past year, I have answered about 400 emails on behalf of the board. For each, I tried to address any specific question the person raised. While many people wrote to thank me for providing additional information, other people believe I overstepped into advocacy, and I apologize for this as well. So let me be transparent. I sent segments of 5 letters to Sarah Raskin, a neuroscientist and a friend, to ask if there was any clarifying information in the research regarding questions they had raised. In one of those questions, Sarah made a comment about what she saw as a misreading of the data, and I truly regret that that comment became indirectly public as well. I was trying to gather information, but for those who see any communication regarding emails to the board as inappropriate, I take full responsibility. In one case, I did forward privately to my husband and my friend a segment of a letter that was personally insulting and dismissive. While this was private and personal, I nevertheless was wrong to do that. I did provide to Sarah Raskin and the mayor and others who asked general information about how the letters were running throughout the past year. I do not consider this insider information as it was available to anyone, but I want to be open about what I did. Finally, I did forward to Sarah my response to another board member. This occurred after a pointed public confrontation. Sarah wrote to ask how I had responded, and I sent her my private letter to that board member. I am very sorry that that became public, and I apologize to my colleague. But it was only my words that I was forwarding. I have tried to be fair and open to all opinions in my public actions and to make sure that all sides get a fair hearing. That is my job as chair, and I did it to the best of my ability. As an individual board member, I discussed my own positions privately, as we all do on policy issues. And I inappropriately shared some thoughts privately with a friend and with my husband. I take full responsibility for all errors in judgment and deeply apologize for any hurt or embarrassment that I caused. I hope this article or my own actions will not, in the long run, distract the board or the community from the substantive matter of school start times, which deserves a full hearing on its own merits and challenges. Carol? Okay. Carol's now going to read a statement from the board.
There have been upsetting incidents of racism and anti-Semitism across the state and nation in recent months, and the entire Board of Education was disturbed to learn that one such anti-Semitic incident happened in one of our schools. Bigotry of any kind is unacceptable, and we are always working to make sure that our schools are places of safety where everyone feels welcome and no one is bullied or made to feel that they do not belong. Everyone belongs. We also recognize that our schools are places of learning, and that this can be what educators call a teachable moment. We commend the ongoing efforts to address racism, anti-Semitism, and other forms of bias provided to teachers, staff, and students by the Office of Diversity and Continuing Education. But we recognize that is not enough. We urge teachers, staff, and students to work every day to create a truly inclusive community for everyone. And we intend, as a board, to examine policies regarding disciplinary actions related to demeaning and hateful speech and bullying.
Thank you.
I think Rob's good.
Under the circumstances, I'm asking the vice chair to manage the public comment section.
So at this time, for those who've signed up, we ask you to come as I call your name. Please remember, you have 3 minutes, and as you approach your 1 minute time, 2 minute time, I'm sorry, Cammie will give you an indication with a yellow card, and then as it's time to wrap up, she'll give you a final red card. So just sort of, keep your eye back and forth in terms of moving it to Cammie. The first person that I have on this list is Megan Culmo, and please state your name and address as you come to the microphone.
It's okay if I move these back a little. I guess I got the red memo. My name is Megan Culmo. I live at 68 Fox Chase Lane. I'm here not with that particular issue, but rock on, teachers. I'm here on behalf of my husband and our 3 children who are in school here. And I also speak for so many of us who are here supporting this effort against the change in school start times. We only got involved in the last, I'd say, 2 weeks. But this process is exactly why people don't get involved in politics. This has been shrouded in secrecy and tainted by 2 women who believe they know how to raise our children better than we do. In this day and age of divisive politics and lack of government transparency, this is yet another reason to not trust politicians. And let me cite 2 emails that I got from Cheryl Greenberg. I don't know what we will decide, but your involvement really helps as we move forward. I don't believe that to be true. Taking no side on the issue at hand, I don't know what we will decide. I think what came out in the Hartford Current speaks to the contrary. This is an epic governmental overreach by not listening to your constituents. Many of the students from Conard High School are here tonight. 74% of those students, when told of the actual implications of this issue, they voted to keep the current schedule. 75% of teachers voted to not change. But many of them were afraid to come forward for fear of retribution. 64% of the public weighed in, saying no, don't change. And of the 150 of us who at that time, about a week and a half ago, we had 150 signatures on a letter, and it counted as 1 vote. That's wrong. This proposal will in no way ensure our children will get more sleep. It will, however, have life-altering consequences and diminish the quality of our lives in West Hartford. Let's stick with the science of common sense. Vote no. And I don't know how, in all due respect, Cheryl Greenberg stays on this board. I call for you to resign.
The next speaker is Ann Donovan.
Good evening. Ann Donovan, 50 Leonard Road. I am not concerned about circadian rhythms. I am concerned about financial rhythms that affect my household. Eversource, cable are raising their rates. The town budget will be addressed in the coming months. We have one child in college and another one going into college in the fall of 2019. The financial rhythm of our home is changing at every turn. 50 Leonard is not in a position for any more financial surprises. You do not have a fixed cost of how this proposed time change will affect the households in this town. We are not the only ones in this situation. Everyone I know is working to make ends meet. This is not Old Greenwich or Cos Cob. The vast majority of West Hartford residents are not in a position to pay additional taxes for 15 to 20 minutes of sleep for a population that are old enough to take responsibility for time management of their bedtime.
Marie McNamara, you're up. Followed by Emma Nordgrist. You will follow Ann, or Marie, sorry.
No problem. Hi, my name is Marie McNamara. I live at 56 Mountain View Drive. I'm here tonight to speak in opposition to the proposal of changing start times. First of all, let me thank the Board of Education and the RSST committee for the time and effort you have put into this topic over the past 2 years. It is obvious that you are passionate about this, and it's quite clear that teenagers do benefit from 8 to 9 hours of sleep. As the mother of 4, making sure they get this sleep is on me, my husband, and them, not you. Thank you. As taxpayers, we have the right to question how our money is spent. During a time when we can't pay our teachers a decent salary, this proposal seems unfathomable to me. In researching what has transpired, I was extremely disappointed in the amount of unanswered questions and the less than cordial tone that we were met with by members of the committee and the chairman. By the way, the answer of, "We've been researching this for 2 years, keep up," is not an answer. If you've been researching and discussing it for 2 years, then why are there so many still unanswered questions? And why be so condescending to those of us who don't know? Valid questions have been asked to the Board of Education, like, what will happen to the high school kids who attend half-day CREC schools like the Academy of the Arts or Science and Innovation? They were met with answers of, we'll figure that out later. Why not figure that out before voting? The PTO president of Webster Hill has asked what outreach has been done to explain to the proposal to the great number of their families that do not speak English as their first language. I believe Webb Hill has at least 22 different languages spoken in their population. It is unacceptable to shrug this off as an afterthought when a group that may be most impacted has not even been considered. When specifically asked about the impact to open choice, the board danced around it, gave haphazard answers, and admitted they didn't really know how that would work. Can you agree that this may be of large concern to people? I'd like to read an excerpt from one of CREC's newsletters entitled West Hartford Public Schools, a cornerstone of the Hartford Region Open Choice Program. West Hartford was there when it all began. It was one of the first 5 Project Concern Open Choice Program districts, and they continue to support its goals and should be commended for their commitment to the Open Choice Program. Yet you haven't figured out how it would actually work or how it would impact them? I venture to say commendable is not a term that I would use to describe how this proposal has been handled. Are you prepared to tell CREC that West Hartford students need a little bit more sleep in the morning? In the end, we are talking about how an individual chooses to use 45 minutes of their day. Vote no. Thank you.
Liz Santoro, you will follow Emma and Peggy.
I'm really nervous right now. Okay. My name is Emma Nordquist, and I live at 175 Griswold Drive. Okay, I'm a sophomore at Hall, and I want you to vote no to a delay in the high school start time. I expressed my concerns to the Board of Ed in an email on October 19th, and I want to thank Ms. Greenberg for a prompt response. There are some terms I would like to further discuss. First, I expressed that getting up early for a 7:30 school start time is a good training for college and the real world after. You responded by saying, since work rarely starts before 8 or 9, and there are no college classes I've ever heard of that begin before 8:30, it is not true that a 7:30 start time prepares you for much more than anything except for working on too little sleep. I have talked to my West Hartford neighbors and found a range of professions that begin before 8 o'clock. Here's a list. Dr. Tiernan, a physician at Hartford Hospital. Mary Ann Seguro, administrator to the athletic director of West Hartford Public Schools. Ali Santiago, chief probation officer in Hartford, and Mike Bell, CFO at Voya Investment Management, all start work between 6 and 7:30 a.m. I also talked to recent West Hartford grads currently attending college and found the following. 2 classes currently being offered at USJ, English 104 and Spanish 100, goes from 8 to 8:50. Caroline, a sophomore at Ithaca College, has accounting at 8 o'clock. Tara, a sophomore at William & Mary, has an 8 o'clock class, which is Chemistry of Emotions, and Kelly, a freshman at Bryant, has History at 8 o'clock. My second concern affects student athletes. I am also a committed member of the Hall swim team. The experience both in and out of the pool has been invaluable. I'm concerned the change will cause major conflicts with the pool rental for practice in the amount of academic time lost for meets. You also acknowledge that you are running into troubles with golf and swimming. We currently rent Cornerstone, an 11-lane facility that accommodates two high schools from late August to March from 3 to 5 p.m. This year, there were 82 amazing female swimmers. What are our other pool options? I am not confident there is a plan. Our meets typically start at 3:30, and we have to have at least 30 minutes of warm-up prior. With your proposed delay, student athletes will have to be dismissed early, missing the same class over and over again. Academic time will be lost, work will have to be made up. I will be playing catch-up, and for me, this is an additional stress factor that I do not need. I understand the importance of sleep, but I strongly encourage an earlier bedtime for West Hartford teenagers rather than a late morning school start. Thank you.
Tim McNamara will follow Liz Santoro.
Good evening, board members. I appreciate your time listening to my family's voice tonight on the rethinking later school start times for this community. My name is Liz Santoro, and my husband and I have resided in West Hartford at 132 Garfield Road for the past 28 years. I'm a full-time working mother with many working commitments. However, first and foremost, my priority lies with the commitment to raising my children with strong ethical values, teaching them how to be responsible, respectful, and accountable individuals within their community. My husband works out of state and has a 3-hour round-trip commute to work. Therefore, transportation and other well-being needs lies with me for any extracurricular or other sporting practice commitments. We are a busy family, always on the move. I have 3 kids, 1 in college, gone through Conard, 1 daughter at Conard, a son at Sedgwick. They've all thrived within the West Hartford school system, academically and socially, and have been involved in vast extracurricular activities such as choir, travel sports, web lead mentoring, student council, honor society, etc. Although I appreciate the Board of Ed initiative in bringing attention and more awareness to sleep study research, I feel strongly that changing these times is not the answer with any of the schools, high school, middle, or elementary. This is not new information. After learning more about the recent RSS survey initiative, which took place in April through May, I believe the goals that they evaluated in terms of looking at transportation from school care children, clearly there would be many involved. that would be impacted. Close to 7,200 recipients responded, and polls were taken, as said earlier. Conard students, 74.4%, were not in favor of making any change whatsoever. Why undergo such elaborate, time-consuming study processes if these results and outcomes are not being considered for policy decision-making? On behalf of my middle school son, who is 13, going through adolescent physical and emotional changes as a young teenager, sleep is as valuable in the tween-teen population as a study research indicates, as it is for the high schoolers. Optimal sleep for children as young as 12 and 13 deserve the same study benefits as do the older high school kids. More rested students should only equate to stronger academic outcomes, less tardiness, less absentee rates, and being more emotionally sound for kids. My son's a walker. His day would begin at 6:20 in the morning to be at school for 7:30 arrival time. Occasionally, he has school obligations in the morning with extra help with teachers, quarterly conference expectations, and web lead mentoring meetings. By starting the day earlier would only lengthen his day with other after-school sporting commitments and extracurricular involvement, which could be compromised with limited town field space, having to be shared with other delayed or pushed back town programs. Even with earlier bedtime instruction coming from us, he would have no control over what the extracurricular practices are scheduled, and this could compromise his emotional sleep needs. I am certain that the athletic director surveyed coaches and teachers as well, and their response was it would be disruptive, the kids would be missing key competency issues, and the overall havoc would be very confusing for the kids. I will conclude by saying I don't argue with the logic and study research that sleep's important, but changing school start times will not guarantee better sleep habits and more sleep from our children. Consistent parenting roles, along with removing distractions like cell phones, social media temptations, all play a detrimental part with sleep pattern interruptions, and studies have shown this. I ask of you tonight, what is your responsibility as a role as a board member in this town mean? As I researched the board website, it talks about identifying, interpreting needs,
Okay,
values.
I'm going to ask you to just wrap up your last sentence. Thank you.
Please ask yourself, I'm voting that you vote no to this proposal. I believe inevitably this will only cause unnecessary disruption, unnecessary cost strain to our already overburdened and ambitious family lifestyle responsibilities. Thank you.
Tim McNamara, followed by Amy Fernstein.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Tim McNamara. I reside at 56 Mountain View Drive in West Hartford. Thank you for allowing me some time to speak tonight. We all agree that our teenagers need more sleep. No argument here. The question is, how do we achieve this? My opinion is that a later start time might help some, but it ignores a significant change in the behavior of today's teenagers. The use of blue light technology devices by our teenagers leading up to and beyond bedtime is impacting the time at which they fall asleep and the quality of the sleep that they get. There are countless studies that show that using blue light and or interactive technology devices negatively impact bedtime when used an hour before intended sleep. If one intends to be asleep by 10:30, then devices should be shut off by 9:30. How many students adhere to this, and how many parents even try to enforce it? Studies show that less than 10%. As an experiment, I would challenge all parents who are concerned about their teenagers' sleep time to have their children cease the use of blue light interactive devices by 9:30, give them a book, and have them read in bed. I assure you that they'll be asleep by 10 o'clock. Unfortunately, those teenagers who are involved in after-school activities and do their schoolwork, would have a hard time meeting this deadline, even with their current schedule. Meeting this schedule becomes even more difficult when school ends 45 minutes later. Should you decide to conduct this experiment, parents, there's a secondary observation you will find. You will likely notice that text and social media activity soars between 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. Just look at the number of alerts, if you do check your kid's phone, text snapshots that come in on your child's phone between these hours, and you'll realize that without a change in your children's behavior, a change in school hours will have little or no impact on the amount of time that they sleep. This motion to change school hours is in no doubt well-intentioned, but sadly will have little impact. Instead, I'm asking parents to take responsibility for their children's well-being, or do we continue to let our children dictate the rules of our homes? And I urge the Board of Education to vote no on this short-sighted solution to this well-documented problem of teenagers' shortage of quality sleep. In the end, we're talking about 45 minutes. This is not a significant amount of time, but making this change will add too much to the cost of operating our school system without proven associated benefits. And on a final note, we talk about programs where kids are going to have to make a choice between one thing and another. One of the finest programs that this town offers is Unified Theater. They rely on a broad mix of participants from all walks of life and all types of kids. They also rely heavily on athletes who participate to a huge percentage. And those athletes are going to have to make a decision as to whether they do their homework, their sporting life, or the Unified Theater, which is something we should not necessarily sacrifice. Thank you again.
My name is Amy Furstein, and I live at 10 Eustis Drive, West Hartford. Let me make myself clear. I'm Amy Furstein, medical assistant at UConn Fertility. I present tonight to not only defend my position on the school times, but also to address the behaviors and disrespect I've endured from people who we are supposed to consider leaders in our child's careers here in West Hartford, school careers here in West Hartford. My email to Cheryl Greenberg was only to express how I truly feel about the change, which my vote is no. And although to some people it may have seemed ridiculous and strictly opinionated, it was still a stance that I took against this proposal. My argument for the time change was simply that it hugely affects families, but more importantly, something that was instilled in me and taught to me by my West Hartford educators, that you are to report to work when you are due to report. Employers in the real world do not cater to scientific research about sleep. And that is exactly what I do when I clock in at 7:30 at my medical assistant position. Although I'm not a doctor, a nurse, I am still valued in my position, and my position is one in which I take a lot of pride into making a positive impact on people daily. I don't think Cheryl Greenberg can say the same, because if she did, I wouldn't be standing here tonight. I'm completely disheartened by the way the chairman deemed it necessary to mock me and my position that I hold in my place of employment. Where I work and what level I work at is no one's business and has nothing to do with this issue I was speaking up against. In current events, this town is facing issues with anti-Semitic behaviors being expressed to other students in our high schools. Shouldn't the behaviors of our board leader set an example? Maybe she needs to take a hard look at herself before she begins to make decisions for our children. To be mocked for my employment position and voicing my opinion are comparable to this situation. Would they like to mock my Jewish heritage as well? Since Cheryl and Ms. Chairman's friend Sarah are on such a roll to poke fun at someone who doesn't agree with their position, do they also speak to people that are below other people that are below their pay grade this way? I work just as hard, if not harder, and pay the same taxes as anyone else in this town, and to hear of my email being mocked only displays childish and atrocious behavior. In our school system, there's supposed to be a zero tolerance for bullying, and yet it seems to happen right here in our very own school board. If there is any one thing that I would like anyone to remember as far as my speech tonight, Cheryl, I highly recommend that before you go and mock someone for their employment and how they put bread on the table, you should probably do it in a way that it doesn't come back to you. You're supposed to be someone we trust to be responsive to the beliefs and priorities of our community and our schools. And instead, you made an impression that you are nothing more than a bully pushing her own agenda. Please resign.
Kelly Weber. Followed by Zoe Pressman, I believe. Oh, that was. Okay.
I think that last one was a separate issue.
I just want to make it clear, the rules say that we have 7 public comments on one issue, and I guess we're a little confused on I just want to make sure that everyone gets their fair share, that's all.
No, agreed. The question would be, according to the rules, it's a judgment call by the chair, the person handing the emails. If the topic is purely late school start times, or if the topic is response to emails, you could count those as 2 separate topics.
So same person, 2 separate topics?
Well, I guess you'd have to say whichever. I mean, it's a question of, it's really up to the chair calling on in terms of what that falls under.
Right, so since the previous speaker was not school start? Okay.
So I'm in favor of voting yes. Is that okay? Okay, I didn't know if there was a number. Okay. All right. Thank you, members of the board, for this opportunity to express my support for later school start times for high school students. My name is Dr. Kelly Weber. I reside at 54 Leonard Road. I'm a parent of a Hall High School sophomore. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I'm the associate director of the Graduate Institute of Professional Psychology at the University of Hartford. And I'm a private practitioner with more than 25 years of clinical experience providing mental health services to children, adolescents, and families. I express my views today as a concerned parent, but also as a practitioner who sees the clinical effects of sleep deprivation, and as a professor who fully appreciates the science that supports the rationale for making this critical change for the teenagers in West Hartford. The science supporting this need for change is simple. Teenagers' brains and their sleep cycles are developmentally different from younger children and adults, and there are a broad range of benefits documented in the literature which support the implementation of later school start times. I'm confident that the board has full knowledge of the science at this point, so I'll use my allotted time to express more general concerns. I'm concerned that those who are speaking in opposition to this change are choosing to ignore the science. I'm aware that some students are being broadly influenced by parents and teachers and coaches potentially coerced with false information and facts in an effort to support the adult's personal preferences while working against the best interest of our teens. Our society rarely holds a prevention mindset. We wait until we reach a breaking point to respond, usually paying more to address critical societal problems rather than investing in solutions that can prevent problems down the line. On this issue, I would argue that we are already at a point of crisis with several public health emergencies that need to be addressed. Sleep deprivation, epidemic rates of anxiety and depression for adolescents and young adults, and teens that are being pushed to the brink of despair, overloaded by pressures adults in society place on them to excel in multiple arenas. How much money is invested by West Hartford Public Schools and parents in an effort to raise test scores, grades, and academic performance via SAT prep courses, tutors, academic coaches, college advisors, and academic programs? Let them sleep in, and the scientific literature shows improvements in grades, standardized test scores, school attendance, and academic engagement. How hard do we push them on the athletic field, overtraining and pushing the competitive edge in hopes of a trophy, D1 admission, and athletic scholarships until injuries sideline these efforts? Let them sleep and athletic performance improves and injuries decline. What amount of money would parents and schools pay to improve their teens' mental and physical health, personal safety, and general well-being? Let them sleep, and rates of substance use, anxiety, and depression decline, obesity is reduced, teen driving accidents are less frequent, and teens report global benefits for their health, wellness, and academic functioning. Rarely do we have an opportunity to engage in an act of primary prevention that offers the potential for so many scientifically supported benefits. Research shows us the slight cost and inconvenience this policy change creates is well worth the investment in the end. For every $1 invested in this change, the Brookings Institute's economic analysis concludes we get $9 back into the economy. And this only considers benefits that result from decreased car accidents and deaths and improved test scores and grades. The economic benefits resulting from improved mental and physical health were not even considered in this analysis. This means for West Hartford's estimated $94,000 investment, we get a minimum $846,000 of potential economic benefit back to our community. Surveys from communities that have adopted later school start times also overwhelmingly suggest that the benefits far outweigh the costs. I hope the
Dr.
board.
Weber?
Yep.
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay, I hope the board in their vote this evening focuses on what is in the best interest of our teens. I hope you focus on the actual science and the wide-ranging benefits this change has the potential to offer our community. I hope West Hartford takes the lead on this issue that has been debated for far too long in this community, and I hope you make the change now for responsible leadership or be forced to later when statewide mandates most surely will force you to do what is required. Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Weber concluded the 7th speaker on the school start times. So we will switch the next speaker for human rights. Okay. Negotiations team. So David Simon. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, he will, but hold on. I'm sorry, Dave.
Yep.
Sarah Raskin is before you for human rights.
E.T. Connecticut, you're falling down here. There we go. Sarah?
Just in between, just as portion of the board, there's a 20-minute limit per topic at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. So there will be time at the end of the meeting also for the topics to come up. That just.
Hi, my name is Sarah Raskin. I live at 193 North Quaker Lane in West Hartford. I'm here representing the Human Rights Commission of West Hartford, and we would like to make a statement on the anti-Semitic event that occurred at Hall High School. The West Hartford's Human Rights Commission's mission is to foster mutual understanding and respect among people and to encourage the equality of treatment of all people. As such, we just want to take this opportunity to voice our belief that West Hartford must always strive to be a community that is welcoming to all of its members. We are distraught that any member of our community, especially a young person, should be made to feel unsafe or unwelcome for any reason. We must all work together as a community to reject all forms of discrimination. This event, coming so soon after the worst attack on a Jewish community in the country's history, is particularly distressing. We call on everyone in West Hartford, young and old, to treat each other with compassion, tolerance, and understanding. And we would like tonight to ask the Board of Education to look into the student-athlete contract and the student handbook, just to see if there might be any places in there where a lack of acceptance of hate speech in any form could possibly be included. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is David Simon. I live at 168 Westland Avenue in West Hartford, Connecticut. I've been a district parent, I'm a teacher in the district, and am a negotiations chair for the West Hartford Education Association. I'm very proud to be here tonight representing our constituents. Because of the confluence of matters that the board has to face tonight, the West Hartford Education Association, representing your teachers, has decided to have only one speaker. However, many were eager to speak. If you were wondering why there are so many people wearing red in the audience tonight, it is to show support for the contract negotiations with the Board of Education to improve teachers' working conditions, salaries, and health benefits for our teachers. Perhaps because the board is involved with their own matters right now, negotiations with your teachers are not a primary concern. However, we want the public to know that our proposal on health care insurance would save the board over $1 million a year for each year of our contract. Despite the board and their brokers supplying the premium rates for our analysis, the board has rejected the union's proposal. Over 30 other districts have successfully joined the plan to help control costs. The Connecticut Partnership Plan is better than what we have at the moment, and certainly much better than the plan being proposed by the Board of Education in our negotiations. The plan the board is proposing would result in a loss of earnings. That's right, a loss of earnings for over half our teachers in the district. Even if there were no financial benefits to changing to the state's plan, even if the state plan were just a break even, it's better for teachers. It seems like a no-brainer. The town should not be allowed to offer a health care plan that is not as good and is more expensive in order to drive teachers to other plans. That's irresponsible. With the loss of earnings, many teachers would leave to more lucrative jobs in the area. At the moment, we have approximately a 75 to 100 teacher turnover per year. And with the board's proposal, more would leave. It is for this reason that the teachers of West Hartford are negotiating for a salary that will keep up with inflation. Over the last 10 years of contracts, our teacher salaries have not kept up with inflation. Yet while we still provide a superior education for our community. Here, teachers have consistently been the best performing, not only in our state, but in the United States of America. We, the teachers of West Hartford, are asking for a salary that keeps up with inflation, a health care plan that is better, and that can save the taxpayers enormous sums of money. As chair of the WHEA negotiations team, I've been frustrated with negotiations in the past, so I wanted to change the process this year. Our intention was to make the negotiations process a more cooperative and community-based effort, to engage administration, our community, and the Board of Education into interest-based bargaining. This is where the parties come together before the negotiation process and determine what the issues are and determine how we, as a community, can solve them together. But there was very little interest on the board's part. People come to West Hartford for the education. Our superintendent of schools, Tom Moore, members of the Board of Education, and the town board, along with the media, have extolled the education in West Hartford.
Mr. Simon?
I'm going to wrap it up right now.
Thank you.
If the people of our town value the superior education that West Hartford is famous for and has traditionally offered your children and community, it is time to support your teachers. Thank you very much.
Kim Jackson, would you make your way to the podium, to the mic? You may begin.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kim Jackson. My husband Jeremy and I and my daughter Leah reside at 52 Gifford Road. I grew up in West Hartford, and I am a 1987 Hall graduate. On Tuesday, November 13th, my daughter, a junior at Hall, and her classmates were working collaboratively in chemistry class. She was eager to get the activity going and took the initiative to do so. A student sitting next to her made a comment directly toward her. The student stated, "Jews always think they have all the authority." She was taken aback by the comment, but chose to continue working. Within minutes after making this comment, while the group was using large beads to model molecules, the student created a swastika with the beads and placed it in front of her. The student remarked, "Is this the right compound?" Leah reported the incident to her teacher and subsequently to the administration. We were advised that the situation was being handled and that they were working with students to establish a proactive school-wide approach to negative behavior against, and I quote the principal, marginalized groups. I am proud of Leah and her friends. Their choice to work with the administration to impact positive change in the school is impressive. While I am pleased that the administration is working with the students, I am disappointed the student was allowed the privilege to represent Hall in an athletic capacity 4 days after this incident. Whatever consequences were issued, they did not include a suspension from the privilege to play in the next football game. Children do not come with instructions. There isn't a buzzer for when something goes wrong or an applause sign when something goes right. Leah's ability to recognize right from wrong, to think before she speaks or acts, to aspire to be and to do good are learned behaviors. Do kids make mistakes? Yes, of course they do. As a teacher and as a mother, I see it all the time. We learn from mistakes. We learn because there are consequences. We learn because we falter, even fail, but we don't give up. When I attended Hall, I made good choices and not so good choices. There was a certain sense of decency, though, that we understood. A line we knew better than to cross. There was accountability and consequences. That seems to be gone. My question tonight is, where is the accountability? What are we teaching children? That they can do or say anything they want and there won't be any meaningful consequences? Educators, coaches, and parents have the incredible challenge of shaping the future. As cliche as that sounds, it's true. Unless we help children understand that there are consequences for their actions, how will they learn? Yes, we inherently want to protect them and provide a safety net for them. But if we remove all obstacles or pain or challenges, how will they ever build the confidence, knowledge, empathy, and compassion to make a difference for future generations? To stand up for what's right and not back down for the sake of a good impression. The administration did an incredible disservice to the Hall and West Hartford Public Schools communities this past weekend when they did not uphold the very ideals for which they stand. The social and cultural competency that the school system is focusing on. The mission and vision of our school system. None of this was upheld when they allowed the student who committed this act to represent the school during the football game. Again, 4 days after the incident occurred. Participation in extracurricular, co-curricular, and athletics is a privilege, not a right. Our superintendent clearly states this in his letter to athletes at the very beginning of the Student Athlete Handbook. My goal for speaking tonight is to request that the board look very carefully at the policies that are in the Student Handbook, Student Code of Conduct, and in the Student Athlete Handbook. We need to make sure that what happened to my daughter does not happen to anybody else, of
Ms.
any
Jackson.
race, religion, ethnicity.
Ms. Jackson, I notice I am going to let her finish, please. I notice your husband is with you, so your husband has 3 minutes as well, because you both signed up on the list, okay?
Yield that to her. Can I yield that to her?
She would have to wrap her sentence up, or she can yield, you both can yield, you can yield her time to you and finish up the remaining amount of time. I would like you to finish, but I also want to keep within our rules.
Of any race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation. The Nazi symbol that was placed before my daughter's eyes is a symbol of hatred. Acts such as this should not be handled. This is hatred that builds over time. If this is what someone is doing today, what happens tomorrow, or in 5 years, or in 10 years? At what point do we draw the line, and at what point do we say, enough is enough? Do you want to continue, or do you want me to read? We cannot continue to stand back and simply acknowledge problems because we want to look good, to pretend that hateful actions, comments, and gestures don't exist because if we ignore or handle them, then they will just go away. I am proud that my daughter and her friends are part of this moment in time. Even with the roller coaster of emotions we have experienced this past week, Leah and her peers are joining forces, taking a heinous gesture and turning it into something positive and potentially, hopefully, long-lasting. Their plan to work together and educate the Hall student body and teachers is admirable and courageous. I cannot wait to see what the future holds for them, because with this attitude, they will go far. Now it is our turn. It is the school system's turn. It is your turn as the Board of Education to take a close look at what we are allowing our children to get away with, allowing the administration to get away with, and not address appropriately and head-on. It is time for clear-cut rules and regulations that are not vague and not up to the administration's discretion. The charge of parents, teachers, and coaches is to educate the whole child, academically, socially, and emotionally. That is the expectation in our school system, so the students grow up to become positive and productive citizens in our world. Let's make that happen for them. Currently, there are clear-cut consequences laid out for the violations of the drug and alcohol regulations for students participating in athletics, extracurricular, and co-curricular activities. These clear-cut consequences should be applicable to all 21 offenses listed under the disciplinary consequences warranting suspension or expulsion. Pages 62 through 69 in the handbook. If you look at those offenses, how are they considered any less serious than the violation of a drug and alcohol policy? The act of a student making remarks and placing a hateful symbol in front of my daughter with the intent to intimidate her was disruptive to the educational process and interfered with her education. The revisions I suggest are not only imperative, but are current with the world we live in today.
The next speaker is Ted Gerner. Okay. Becky Azia, I don't want to, Asia, I'm sorry.
My name is Becky Asia, and I live at 16 Fairway. I have an 8th grader at King Philip and a junior at Hall, and have been a public elementary educator for 23 years. I would like to speak about Hall's response to the anti-Semitic incident on November 13th. I am so pleased with the support and empowerment that the Hall administration and history department has given to the kids involved and affected. The ideas that have been discussed and the plans for learning and collaboration are an amazing first step in working towards a positive, more sensitive, immediate future where no group at Hall has to feel marginalized. So thank you, Hall administrators and history department, for transforming the kids' anger, hurt, and helplessness into an intelligent and constructive opportunity for learning and growth. At the same time, I feel disappointed with the consequence that was given for the offense. The lack of severity stands in juxtaposition to the efforts being made to improve school culture. Forward-thinking actions are truly beneficial. However, a piece was lost when a weak consequence was issued. We've all had occasion to give consequences to our own children. I'm sure many of us have had instances where our consequence didn't seem to make an impact because our kid was right back doing the same thing the next day. Thus, we find ourselves as parents searching for a consequence that actually matters to our kid, the hit 'em where it hurts consequence. From the time our kids are toddlers, we want them to remember how the consequence felt and how much they didn't like having it as a deterrent to that same behavior in the future. In this anti-Semitic instance last week at Hall, there was a consequence, and yes, the consequence was in accordance with the student code of conduct, but it just really didn't matter. It wasn't a consequence that any other kid in the future will stop and say, wow, I don't like how that consequence is going to feel. So I reiterate Kim's goal for our speaking tonight. There are clear-cut consequences written for the violations of the drug and alcohol policy for students participating in athletics, extracurricular, and co-curricular activities. Students take the drug and alcohol policy very seriously and carefully because they do not want that consequence. These unequivocal consequences should be applicable to all 21 offenses listed under the disciplinary consequences warranting suspension or expulsion. See the pages Kim referenced. These offenses, including anti-Semitism, are no less egregious than violating drug and alcohol policy. And finally, I'm changing topics, and I think I'm not allowed to, but I am anyway. Please give these hardworking teachers what they want. They are asking for so little, and they do so much for this whole town and our kids.
Okay, that concludes the speaker list on this topic, I do believe. And the remaining speakers will have an opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting. Yes.
Oh, there's no one else on the list?
Not for this topic, yes.
Okay, next I'd like to call for a motion that Tom Moore act as temporary chairperson of this meeting for the purpose of electing a chairperson for the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Yeah, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you were the temporary chairperson.
It's the one time every year I have all of the power in the education town. No, it's all right. I'll use my hand. The meeting will please come to order. Nominations are now in order for the office of chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Carol Blanks.
I second the nomination.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Carol Blanks is nominated. Is there a second?
I would like to second the nomination.
Are there any further nominations for the office of chairperson? Nominations are closed. Those in favor of Ms. Blanks for chairperson say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Carol.
At this time, I would like to place Deb Poland in nomination for vice chairperson. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
No.
Motion carries 4-2, 5-2. Do I have a nomination for the role of secretary?
I'd like to nominate Dr. Lorna Thomas Farquharson for secretary.
And do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Are there any other nominations for the role of secretary? No. All in favor of Dr. Lorna Thomas Parkinson for the role of secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. The next nomination is for the role of financial examiner. Do I have a nomination? Democrat, I'm sorry. So it's a financial examiner for the Democratic Party, if you will.
I nominate Deb Poland for the role of financial examiner representing the Democratic Party.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations for financial examiner for the Democratic Party? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, may I have a nomination for the role of financial examiner for the Republican Party?
I nominate Mark Zdanowitz for the role of financial examiner.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of Mark Zdanowitz for financial examiner for the Republican Party, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Congratulations to all. Need to switch seats?
Now we'll just take a quick pause to switch seats as is appropriate.
We're good? Okay. The next order of business on the agenda is on the unfinished business of school start times. The recommendation is that the Board of Education consider a change to the school start time. The board has agreed to choose between option 2 and option 4 as discussed at the October 16, 2018 Board of Education meeting. Good evening. As you know, for the past year and a half, we have been studying the issue of adjusting our school start times. We have heard presentations from our Rethinking School Start Times Committee, and I thank them for their good, honest work led by Ann McKiernan. We surveyed parents, teachers, children, with over 7,000 respondents, and in the past few weeks have received hundreds of emails on both sides of the topic. We, as elected Board of Education members, must always do what is best for the schools and our students. I believe that to hold a vote at this time with such high emotions is not doing what is best for West Hartford. As such, I move that we table this action on this agenda item, and I want to make a motion to that. So I'm asking, do I have a second?
I second the motion. I second the motion.
All in favor would be a yes, and opposed would be a no. Okay, so all in favor
To table.
to table the motion at this time. I'm sorry, I'm getting used to this.
I think you have to do something. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. And do we have any opposed? Go ahead.
Opposed.
Opposed.
So the motion carries 5-2. The next agenda item is new business, staff communications and reports. Superintendent's reports. Mr. Moore.
Gotcha. Look at all the teachers leaving. I'm about to speak. Ronnie, I see you walking out, Ronnie. Bill Condon in back. Look at all of you.
I don't think they like you.
I know. I hired many of these people that are leaving on me. Okay, so if I could, while people leave, while some people make their way out, as we head into Thanksgiving, there's a lot to be proud of as West Hartford Superintendent. Thank you, Mr. Katz. Nice. I'm a history teacher. When people ask me, what do? I say I'm a history teacher on special assignment as a superintendent. I am so proud to be superintendent in West Hartford, where our kids over the past week have donated hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food to those less fortunate. I think it's important as we spend time at Thanksgiving that we remember our kids and families that may not have the same plenty that everyone else does. And also as we spend time with families to remember those that have lost people that they care about. And there's one less table at this Thanksgiving dinner. But one of the things I also want to say about West Hartford is, as a history teacher, I really appreciate all the people coming out. I appreciate the kids coming out. I appreciate the people telling us what we do wrong. I understand. I appreciate people, our kids, writing letters, asking, what should we do? I appreciate West Hartford's percentage of voters in the recent election. Stay engaged. We have, I promise you, nothing to hide. There is nothing in the schools that we are so sure we're 100% right that we can't deal with people's feedback. I appreciate it. I want every kid cared for. I want to make sure that we take care of each other. And as such, there's one thing that stuck with me. I just happened upon it yesterday. Abraham Lincoln, 154 years ago. I've always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice. So I hope for this Thanksgiving that we find mercy for each other. And since we're talking about blue light, if I had one Thanksgiving wish, it would be put the keyboards down. Move away from Facebook. Spend time with your families, kids, adults. Try not to argue at the kitchen table. It'll be difficult for me with some of my brothers, trust me. But if we could just spend time remembering that we're human beings, being thankful for each other, being thankful for West Hartford, being thankful for these kids that are taking us to better places, I think we'll all reach that place sooner. Thank you for entrusting me with the position of superintendent. I greatly appreciate it, and I promise I don't take it for granted. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next item is routine matters, approval of the minutes. So we have the approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting of education of November 7th, that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting of November 7, 2018. May I have a motion to approve with the necessary corrections?
So moved.
And may I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any, in terms of information and report, are there any communications and reports from any board members at this time? Dave?
Hey, I just want to say I had a chance to visit Wolcott Elementary School a couple times since our last meeting. They had an international night, and I try to visit all those that I can. If you get a chance, please stop by Bugby, Charter Oak, so many of our schools, Webster Hill and Wolcott. One of the things about Wolcott that's neat, they got food samples. That's awesome. It is better than going to Stu Leonard's or wherever. I ate some good food, so thank you to everyone at Wolcott. And I was able to return on Veterans Day for the ceremonies there. As a veteran myself, I certainly appreciated that. And Mark, I hope you had a chance to visit a school as well. It was really, really touching. I know all our schools do so many things for the veterans, and it was really neat to be part of one of those ceremonies.
Thank you, Dave. And I also want to give a shout out to all the veterans that are sitting out in the audience today and on our listening audience at home. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your service, because we all know that freedom isn't free. So we again thank you for your sacrifice. Let's see, other information. I think that brings us to the non-staff communication and reports from our student reps. I'm not sure who went the last time, so I'll leave it up to the two of you.
Hi everyone. So as you can imagine, everyone is pretty busy at Conard because of the transition from first to second quarter. This was mentioned earlier, but we did our annual food drive to benefit the West Hartford Food Pantry. We collected bags from every homeroom, and we collected like a lot of non-perishable goods. It was really great. The Conard Hall football game was over the weekend on Saturday, and homecoming was the same night. Last week, Senator Blumenthal met with students about new FDA regulations on e-cigarettes. Conard Drama presented its last two performances of the 10-Minute Play Festival over the weekend. And on Monday, veterans from Connecticut visited Conard to talk about their experiences on the Monday after Veterans Day. This happened a couple weeks ago. I didn't have news on it in time for the last meeting, but the Model UN over at UConn took part of a thing they do over there, and they received several awards. They were really great. And lastly, freshman Gavin Sherry finished in second place at the New England Cross Country Championship. So congratulations, Gavin.
Hi, everyone. Things at Hall are in full swing. Recently, we had the annual Hall Conard football game, and the Warriors were victorious. It was a great event full of school spirit. The Hall boys soccer team made it to the state finals and unfortunately lost in a hard-fought game to Glastonbury this Sunday. It's the first time the team has made it to the finals in 35 years, so they deserve a huge congratulations for their amazing season. The boys' cross-country team recently came in fourth in the New England's championship meet. This is officially the best cross-country team in Hall's history, and the Hall cross-country team is the top public school team in New England. Senior Trey Cormier won the championship meet, finishing with a time of 15 minutes and 56 seconds. Congratulations to him and the whole team, although anyone who can run a 5K in less than half an hour is impressive to me. In other news, The Answer, Hall's comedy improv troupe, had their first show this past Friday and had a great turnout. Their next show is December 7th at 7 in the Black Box. Finally, I wanted to call attention to a group of Jewish students at Hall who are working to create a program to promote a safer school climate and awareness and education towards hate. This is what was emailed to social justice club leaders and the student government from these students. We are a group of Jewish students who, in light of recent anti-Semitic events at Hall High School, want to help create a lasting change within the school and the community. We have been working with administration and have come to the conclusion that we want this change to be anti-hate, not just about anti-Semitism, by incorporating groups of diverse backgrounds who have and continue to face discrimination. Essentially, we are thinking of doing a teach-in day for all social studies classes grades 9 to 12. However, we do not want it to come from just one social justice group, so we would greatly appreciate your help in creating a lesson plan and teaching this curriculum to get this important message of anti-hate across to all students. Members of different social justice groups will be meeting with these students on Tuesday to discuss how to run this very important workshop. We are so grateful for their efforts to make Hall a safer place for all students. Thank you, everyone, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Megan and Gus. Future business would be the announcement of our meeting dates. So we have a meeting coming up Tuesday, December 4th, 2018 at 7 p.m. right here at Town Hall, 50 South Main Street in the Legislative Chamber, which is this room, 314, followed by the second meeting of the month of December on Tuesday, December 18th, 2018 at 7 p.m. right here, once again, Town Hall, Legislative Chamber, room 314. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Mark?
Yeah, after Mark.
Okay. Red or blue? So I go red or blue?
There we go. I don't think it could be understated, though. I know they both mentioned it, but when you have two athletes in cross country, both from Hall and Conard, one town, two separate high schools. Remember, we compete with towns with one high school, and both coming in first and second in New England was just, I was actually there, and it was a tremendous. So I know they did it separately, but West Hartford should be proud of both those New England champions right here in West Hartford.
Okay. Just a request for a future agenda item would be a presentation on what our district policies are around consequences for hateful and demeaning speech. What's that?
I don't have a problem with that, and I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if that is something that we put through the policy committee.
Yeah, it could be either. You could go either way.
No, and I
Policy
don't,
committee.
I mean, we talked about it in the beginning.
Yeah, we'll talk about
address
it in the-
But whether
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
agenda
it's
item
a-
or it's handled through the policy committee, how
It could go
normal.
either way. We can talk about it at a formal
As long as
meeting
it
in
gets-
terms of with the policy committee that meets separately, or we can do both, kind of. The policy committee can meet with.
Right, as long as it gets
administration.
handled appropriately,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you. This brings us to our comments from visitors. So this is the second round, if you will. And let's see. Kelly Weber. Now Zoe. If I go in order, this would be the school start time. And I believe Kelly Weber had gone.
Yeah.
So Zoe
I think it's Zach Pressman.
or Zach? Okay, I'm sorry. Looks like the ink ran out, Zach. I apologize. So you're up.
Good evening. My name is Zachary Sobel Pressman. I am a resident at 39 Warwick Street. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I strongly believe that later start times will greatly benefit the entire school district, both in academics and in general student well-being. I am a 16-year-old junior at Hall High School. In addition to taking multiple AP classes, I play 2 seasons of sports and play in the band, and am involved with clubs both in and out of school. While opponents of changing school start times have cited possible conflicts with sports as reasons to maintain the current start times, I believe we continue sacrificing teenagers' mental and physical health by keeping them. The benefits of later start times are numerous. Delaying high school start times will improve students' performances in early morning classes because it will make the hours we sleep align more closely with our natural circadian rhythms. Every year, I find myself unable to concentrate or perform simple calculations in my first period classes, and I wake up as the day goes on. But this year, on some days, I have first period free and I'm able to sleep for just 45 more minutes. On those days when I sleep just a little later, I am able to concentrate as soon as I arrive at school, and I don't have to spend as much of the day waking up. One of the biggest arguments opponents cite is that sports practices would have fewer hours to practice. I believe changing start times would not actually have a more positive effect for student athletes. Our cross-country team typically begins practice at 2:30 and ends around 4:15, meaning none of the 130-plus athletes just from this one sport can take the 4 o'clock late bus or do homework in the library. This leaves the entire team to rely upon our parents to pick us up, which often means waiting for almost an hour. This season, all of the parents in my carpool worked, so we had to wait until 5 o'clock at school, unable to do homework because we couldn't access computers. If start times were pushed back 40 minutes, then the time wasted would be minimized or even eliminated. With later start times, student athletes would get home around the same time, but would be better rested. Opponents to later start times say that our teams will get to competitions, possibly affecting performance. But reporter Alex Putterman, son of former West Hartford Board of Education member Bruce Putterman, thinks differently. In an article in The Atlantic, which I can give you the link to, he argues that getting enough sleep will cause athletes to perform better and be less prone to injury. In fact, a study of students in Los Angeles found that students who got enough sleep were 1.7 times less likely to get injured than students who didn't sleep enough. Delaying start times will improve the health of our student athletes by allowing them to get the sleep they need. If adopted, these changes to school start times will have a great effect on the health and well-being of future West Hartford students. Don't let inconveniences prevent you from doing the right thing for the future of this town. Thank you.
Next speaker is Susan Gold.
Good evening. My name is Susan Rubman Gold. I'm a clinical psychologist. I am boarded in behavioral sleep medicine. I'm the director of behavioral sleep medicine at the Hospital of Central Connecticut and an assistant professor in the Department of Clinical Psychiatry at the Yale School of Medicine in New Haven. Excuse me, I live at 9 Timrod Lane in West Hartford. I'm speaking on the topic of delayed school start times again. I want to return to basics for the moment. Adolescent biology means that the release of melatonin is delayed, so for teens, sleep does not generally occur until between 11 p.m. and midnight. Sleep is limited because students must get to school by 7:30, and by simple math, we can see that the available time for sleep is far shorter than the 9 to 9.25 hours recommended for teens. I am certain that everyone in this room can cite an exception to a rule. A 90-year-old who smokes a pack of cigarettes per day, a person who survived a motorcycle accident without wearing a helmet, or a 17-year-old who falls asleep easily at 10 and wakes up happily at 6. Delayed school start times are not about the exceptions to the rules. About 85% of teens get far less than the recommended total sleep time. When school start times are delayed, students sleep more and change is enduring. This is demonstrated repeatedly in large studies with tens of thousands of students, and there is no debate about this in literature. Put aside for a moment the fact that when students get more sleep, grades, attendance, sports performance, and mood improve, and that car accidents, impulsivity, aggression, alcohol, and substance use decrease. There are no peer-reviewed studies that refute that data, period. A true story. I took the train to New Haven last weekend, and 2 high school girls were on the train. We ended up sitting in close proximity, and they were chatting. I couldn't not hear them if I tried, and I tried. They talked about sports, clothes, plans, and friends. And then one girl spoke casually about suicidal statements that another friend had been making, and it seemed that that was not an uncommon occurrence in their experience. The data. A recent meta-analysis involving 600,000 subjects looked at sleep and suicidality in adolescents. Data clearly show that for every 1 hour increase in sleep, all forms of suicidality, thoughts, plans, and attempts decrease by 11%, and the lowest risk for suicidal thoughts and attempts occurs with 8 to 9 hours of sleep. I would ask you to factor this into your decision-making and weigh the risks and benefits of even one student's life. This is not an issue of just school or just sleep. I remind you that no fewer than 10 national medical and health organizations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, and the CDC, have endorsed policies calling for high school start times no earlier than 8:30 a.m. Thousands of high schools have changed their times, and none have gone back. As adults, we bear the responsibility to make decisions that are in the best interests of the health, safety, and welfare of our dependent minors who are not in a position to make these decisions for themselves. In the hierarchy of priorities for our students, health and safety needs to be at the top of the ladder. No amount of petitions, complaints, letters, or emails erases the science and the data. There are always challenges associated with change. A decision to maintain the status quo on school start times communicates...
Dr. Gold, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wrap it up.
I'm happy to do that. A decision communicates that the board feels that they have knowledge that supersedes literally hundreds of thousands of medical and educational professionals. Let West Hartford be a leader in this area and make a change to prioritize the health, safety, and education and the wellness of our students. Thank you.
Next speaker is Maria LaRusso.
Hi, I'm Maria LaRusso. I am the parent of first and third grader in West Hartford. I live at 93 Meadowbrook Road. I'm also a professor of human development and family studies at the University of Connecticut, and my position on school start times is as a researcher. I am a specialist in child and adolescent social emotional development, and my research has, for the past 15 plus years, focused on examining the impact of programs and interventions designed to improve the social emotional well-being of youth. In the past couple decades, in my field, we've seen an explosion of research on this topic, and in particular, looking for and testing programs and interventions that improve adolescent well-being. And what I can say is that after after 20 years of intense research on this topic, we know a lot more about what doesn't work than what does work. Most programs and interventions have no effect or mediocre effects at best, and often those effects are not sustained. I personally, in my career, have never seen the science more solid on anything you can do to improve adolescent well-being than reducing school start times to earlier times. It's actually, sometimes I wish I was a school start time researcher myself, because I could feel so effective in what I was able to show works. The programs that I study do show some impacts, but nowhere near having consistent positive effects on such a broad range of outcomes: academic outcomes, mental health outcomes, physical health outcomes. The other thing I would like to say is that I also, in my research, study quality of social environments and classroom environments in schools. And I know that there are parents who feel like, well, my kid gets up easily at 6, and my kid's doing fine in school, so this is really a problem just for certain kids. But in fact, even for those children for whom more sleep may not be a crucial necessity, what we see is that when we have more children in the classroom who are showing up alert, who are actively engaged, who are not producing behavioral problems for their teachers because they're overtired, we end up with a classroom environment that is more inclusive, more actively engaged. We see higher quality discussions, higher quality debates, and the general level of instruction in the classroom improves. And what that means is that this is a win-win for all students, because if the quality of instruction and the quality of interactions in classrooms improves, every student benefits.
Next speaker, I believe, is it Lance Goldberg? Is that right?
Hi there. I'm a high school teacher. I'm a Little League head coach, and I'm a parent of a 4th grader at Bugby who'll be impacted by these changes. My name's Lance Goldberg. I live at 26 Brenway Drive. I've seen all sides of this issue, and I strongly support this imperfect plan. The science is clear. It's best for kids. I want to thank the board especially for looking into it. I've watched the videos, I've come to meetings, and you guys have taken it incredibly seriously. And seeing it on TV is different than seeing it here, and seeing the anguish in your faces in dealing with all the moving parts, because it is complicated. And to see it close up is to understand that it's complicated. And so I really do appreciate the hard work that you guys have done, listened, and well, I feel confident that the science is clear, and I think that you do too, and it's the complicated part is what to do about it. The CDC, well, some of the stuff I've already heard, does say the earliest time that school should start is 8:30. I think most of us are in agreement with this. In 2013, while going for a master's at Wesleyan, I wrote a paper on later school starting time without really knowing where it was going to go and trying to look at the research. And I came to the independent conclusion that later school start time made the most sense. I want to leave you with one big thought, although it's already been mentioned, that I don't think it's mentioned enough, that all districts experiment with evidence what's best for kids. They take a look, they think about it. Last night, Wayland, Massachusetts, voted to adopt later school starting time. That's a suburb in Boston. Hundreds have done this across the country. In fact, surprised to hear this, 2/3 of all high schools back 3 years ago, it's probably more now, they start at 8 o'clock or after. We're in the minority in West Hartford, and it's not even close. 2/3, 8 o'clock or after. Obviously, these are difficult decisions for all districts. The same kind of issues that we heard earlier tonight, the same kind of concerns that parents have, the same kind of concerns about sports, it's shared. But what we also heard was 100% of districts haven't gone back. That's a remarkable number. I've done the research since 2013 trying to see if districts have gone back. They haven't. They've adjusted and they've figured it out. 100% haven't gone back, or at least statistically. Obviously, districts that change find value and they make it work. So I grew up in West Hartford. I'm a Hall graduate. Some of my teachers were here earlier today, believe it or not. I love them, love the teachers, and I'm really, again, grateful that you guys took this on, and I wish you luck, and I strongly support later school starting time. Thank you.
Lauren, is it Mailer or Mahler? Mahler.
So my name is Lauren Mahler, and I reside at 43 Cliffmore Road. I oppose option 2 as a solution to students' sleep deprivation and stress. I do not believe students and the board have fully considered the consequences. I want to point out that I've already experienced later school start times. Over the summer, I took an accelerated EMT course. The class started at 9 and it went until 5. But unlike I and my peers, we got 8 hours of sleep or less. We were still falling asleep at 9. I also want to point out that this policy that you are considering is very detrimental to athletes. Athletes, according to Jason Siegel, the WHPS athletic director, make up 58% of the student population at Hall and 52% of the student population at Conard. The delay will require early dismissal for a majority of away and home games, as you've noted in your study. Right now, there's an estimated 250 to 265 events, which will require a 45 to 60-minute early dismissal. That's missing half of 7th period and 8th period. I believe this will be very detrimental to the work that the students will, they'll have less time in class, and I believe that that will severely impact their grades. The missed classwork will require them to stay up later at night so that they can finish it. Participation in sport isn't the sole activity of students outside of school. Later school start times, as will the board admitted, likely force a student to choose between their extracurriculars, limiting the diversity of their participation. This will be an especially hard decision for someone who needs to maintain a job after school and also wants to be involved in their extracurriculars. If students with outside extracurriculars choose to keep them, they, like athletes, will need to rush after school to make the usual start. The need to rush will result in missed time to speak with teachers after school, and homework is delayed until late at night. I implore the board members to vote no on option 2. The board must uphold the interest of all individuals. Voting no will accomplish the same. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy. Is it Amy Bolton? Bolton.
Hi, my name is Amy Bolton. I live at 14 Greenhurst Road. I have 3 kids, and I didn't know I was going to speak until like an hour ago, so I didn't prepare anything, so I'm going to keep this brief. First, thank you, board members, for volunteering to do this job. I don't know that, right? I mean, like, the amount of time and effort that you do, and no one's getting any money for this. I personally strongly support later school start times. We have an epidemic of anxiety and depression among our kids, and this is something we can do. And the benefits of it are so extreme, and the impact is sort of, when we weigh the benefits and the impact, the benefits are clear. We need to do this for our kids, so please make start times later. Thank you very much.
And the final speaker for the night is Saul Katz.
Hi. Well, my name is Sal Katz. I'm currently an 8th grader at King Philip Middle School on the Garnet team, and I believe that the school start time should stay the same. Believe me, I am not a morning person. I mean, you can ask my family, alarm or not, I can't get up. It's really hard for me to get up. But the issue with schools today is not the start times. That's not why students are, generally speaking, constantly late or too tired to pay attention in the morning. And this isn't anybody's fault, but it's the fact that students are tired due to the amount of homework they're receiving and due to the extracurricular activities they participate in. By adding some extra sleep time, all that is happening is pushing athletics and music programs later, causing students to start their homework later. The cycle would continue, just at different times. Now, some could argue that no matter what time the cycle would start, it would still occur. While this is true, West Hartford would be wasting taxpayer money for something as small as a change in schedule. Therefore, coming from a student, even from an anti-morning person, I urge you to vote for the later start times. For all it would do would push the cycle of too much homework and lack of sleep 20 to 30 minutes later. And I'd also like to add, earlier, like way earlier, back when they were doing them at the beginning, someone had mentioned that this school start times would affect the correct school order, and I would like to say that would also affect my family as well. My sister participates in the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts half-day program, and this would greatly affect her. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sal. I don't have any others listed on the speaker list, so I'm going to move to the next agenda item. We don't have an executive session, so I would ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carry. Everybody have a good night and a safe and happy Thanksgiving.